Today on What It's Like, a car that if you're a car guy, you're not supposed to like. 2009 Toyota Prius, which I am the owner of. In this episode, we are going to go over everything about the second generation Prius and why some of the car pundits are just plain wrong on this car. But before getting into all of that, I'm Jay. Welcome to What It's Like. This channel, we usually feature the classics, vintage, some exotics, lots of orphan cars, and cars off the beaten path. We dive in deep, give period correct ads as well as specs, show perspectives as well as perceptions that other car channels simply don't show. If that sounds of interest to you, hit the subscribe button, turn on the bell icon next to it to never miss a video. Let's talk Toyota Prius. Before getting into this 2009 Prius, which happens to be my new A to B transportation, here is a bit of a Prius overview. As of taping this episode in the fall of 2022, Prius has 4 generations. The first generation went on sale in Japan in 1997. It was/is considered the first mass production hybrid vehicle. We will come back to the whole hybrid thing later on. Anyway, introduced to the world market in 2000, Toyota sells the Prius in 90 markets, with Japan and US being the largest of the two markets. Generation 1 was produced from 1997 to 2003. Generation 1 was broken down into 2 cars, really. 1997 to 2000 was considered the NHW10. Toyota updated the car in 2000 and was known as the NHW11. Second generation, which is our car, also known as XW20. We're going to come back to this one with more detail. Third generation was produced from 2010 to 2014. It was also known as XW30. It was the first Prius that you could plug in as a plug-in hybrid, which would give you roughly about 12 miles of range on the battery alone. Fourth generation, aka XW50, 2015 to present, with a facelift in 2018. 2022 saw the release of the Nightshade Edition, which was offered as front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. Getting back to the topic at hand, second generation Toyota Prius. It was built between 2004 and 2009 model years, made its debut in April 2003 at the New York City International Auto Show, sized between the Corolla and the Camry. The second generation is 6 inches longer than the previous generation, classified as a SULEV, which stands for Super Ultra Low Emissions Vehicle. The second generation Prius is the best generation of Prius among Prius enthusiasts because of its simplicity. Generations after this, from what I've read, the third generation having head gasket issues. So keep that in mind if you're looking at getting one of these. Not an issue on the second generation, it's an issue on the third generation. Let's talk specs. 175 inches long, 68 inches wide, 59 inches tall, rides a wheelbase of 106.3 inches, curb weight is 2,932 pounds. The gross weight is 3,795 pounds, which is less than the Mercedes-Benz 450 SL, which claims to be a light car, but it's simply not. And I'm just going to hold that to a standard. That's going to be the standard of crap. I absolutely hate that car. Everybody puts it up on such a high pedestal, but it's the biggest piece of crap that I've reviewed all year. Anyway, moving on, drag coefficient. We don't usually talk about this one. The most aerodynamic car ever built to date is the Mercedes EQS, which has a drag coefficient rate of 0.20. Next up would be the Tesla Model S at 0.24. The Prius comes at 0.26, which is pretty cool that it rivals those cars, which are, I don't know, a lot more expensive than the Toyota Prius, and it's right up there with them. Price for a Toyota Prius in 2009 was $22,000. That's what they started at, which is equivalent to you spending $30,371.27 in the year 2022. Total world production of a 2009 Prius was 404,200 units. So if you want one, they're out there. Just go find one. Moving on to power plant, 1500cc, inline 4, 1.5 liters. It makes 110 horsepower at 5,000 RPM, 82 foot-pounds of torque at 4,200 RPM. It features a double overhead cam as well as variable valve timing. With that being said, this is a hybrid, so it technically has two engines. It also has an electric motor as well as a battery. The second generation Prius isn't a plug-in hybrid. This system utilizes both the gas engine and the electric motor for propulsion. They work in unison. It's important to note that if you're out of gas, you are also out of electricity because this is not the plug-in hybrid type. The gasoline engine is mated to a CVT transmission, which stands for continuously variable transmission. All right, let's talk about this door panel. There's lots of different materials used. This feels like a very scratchy plastic that's used here and here. This is a different type of plastic, but it still feels like a hard plastic, much like those like-type cars that I had when I was a wee lad. This feels like the same plastic. Down here, this is the armrest, and notice it's covered in cloth. I think this armrest broke. You see how it's moving? The armrest material underneath the cloth feels a lot like the armrest material used in like an 88 Lincoln. Very thin, very flimsy, but they wrapped it with this cloth material, so if it breaks, you can't really see it. There's the door handle to pull the door shut. Here is the door handle to get out. This shows that the door is locked or unlocked. Up here is the mirror controls, left and right, and then it's controlled by this toggle switch. Lock and unlock the doors. This one locks and unlocks the windows. This is for the driver's side window. It's automatic. Passenger side window, and these are the two windows for the back seats. Coming down here, this is a nice cubby hole to store various things. If you have maps or whatever, books, thermos, maybe a small drink or a drink would fit there. There's a light so you can see getting into your car at night. Coming down inside the pedal box, this is for the emergency brake release or the parking brake. This is your brake, gas pedal, hood release. Here's what I look like. There is lots of headroom in this car. Here's what under the steering wheel looks like. There's lots of room underneath the steering wheel. Okay, this is generally where we do all the button switches and knobs with the high definition cinematic camera, but we're just gonna talk about the button switches and knobs with this camera because they're totally laid out differently than what they generally are. Everything is controlled through the steering wheel. It's almost pre-Tesla. This car made its debut in 2004, the second generation Toyota did, and everything is controllable through the steering wheel. Here is your volume control settings. Here's your mode control button. This one controls like radio stations through the mode control. This one even has to control climate control on the steering wheel. I believe this is the first car to feature that feature. If I'm wrong, in the comment section below with the correct answer. Over here, defrost, rear defrost and front defrost, and the climate control for the air conditioning to circulate. This has everything to do with the windshield wipers. Front windshield wipers are up and down. Rotate the rear of the stock for the rear windshield wiper. This control stick has everything to do with the turn signals and the bright lights. And over here, this is your main control center. And honestly, this part of the car didn't age well, but once you figure out what it's trying to tell you, it's not a bad setup. It's just sort of dated. So you have climate, which you could choose where you want to put the air, and you could move it around using the buttons and everything on the steering wheel. You can control up and down for the temperature on here. I shut it off, so I have to turn it on. Auto AC, and that will turn it on. And then you can adjust it if you want it to go warmer. See, the temperature's going up. I'm controlling that from the steering wheel. There are no buttons associated with it over here except for the touchscreen itself. You can go to audio. You can pick your different audio selections. There's FM1 and FM2. So if you have, my wife has her settings on FM2, I have my settings on FM1. AM, so it's got AM FM radio, no XM radio or satellite radio. Down here is the clock. Here's the 4 ways, odometer, trip. This can change it from kilometers to miles per hour or vice versa. Down here, this has everything to do with your volume. You can set the tune. It does have a CD player, so you can put CDs in there. There is a storage cubby here, put change or your phone in there. iPhone XR fits in there perfectly and shuts. Cruise control settings are located right here at the bottom of the steering wheel. It's a very unique place for a cruise control stick, but to set it, you push the button in first, and then you set it by pushing this down, cancel by pushing this forward, and resume by pushing this up. Up here we have sun visors with courtesy mirrors as well as lights, so you can see. You have the option to turn the light on or off. Over here there is another sun visor courtesy mirror situation. Same thing, you can turn the light on or off. Over here there's a nice place for you to put your sunglasses. Up here, I'm guessing that's a garage door opener. This is for the light up there. This one's for the light there. Here is what rear view visibility looks like out of the rear view mirror. So that's what rear visibility looks like out the back when you put the windshield wiper on. That's all that gets windshield wiped. So half the windshield gets wiped, the other doesn't. There is oh crap handles on the side for everybody. Even the driver has an oh crap handle, which is great. Check out these A-pillars and look how big they are. And look at this windshield and how it's raked. Daytime, nighttime mirror there. There is another storage container here. I guess you could put a cup holder there. There's another cup holder here. This is what the center console looks like. There's this removable bin here and various other things inside there. This is my personal car, so there's some stuff everywhere. This has 2, not 1, but 2 glove boxes. There's a glove box at the top there, which would be strictly just for gloves. The bigger ones at the bottom, and better do the glove box test. So here is our glove box test subject going inside of the glove box. Oh man, look at that, it fits. I have to move it out of the way. Okay, let's turn her around. And it fits in there perfect. Getting into the back seat. There's lots of headroom back here considering the size of the car. Moving on to leg room. There is lots of leg room. Look at how much space there is in reference to my knees. Lots of leg room. There are some creature comforts back here. We got map pockets, as well as cup holders, as well as a center armrest, map light. There's oh crap handles for everybody. Everybody gets a handle to hold on to. Coming back here to the rear window, it doesn't go completely all the way down. About 2 inches sticks up about here, but the rest of it goes down all the way. Coming back to the rear trunk section back here, so just check this out. This is the rear windshield wiper that you have, and notice it doesn't go the whole way. It doesn't cover the whole area back here. It only comes about here. So this part doesn't get wiped off. Only the driver's side gets wiped off. You could also lock the car back here with this button. Getting into the trunk, I wish that there was a legit handle to get in. It's more or less a button. You push the button up and it locked the door. It's one of my pet peeves about this car. I don't like that it locks the door and then you can't get back here. But you just hit the button and it pops open. This is how much space you have back here with the seats up. It's quite a lot of space considered how big this car is. There's a light right here to see if you're loading stuff in here at night. This is a privacy shade that comes back here and hooks in. It hooks into right here, so if you have stuff you don't want people to see when the hatch is closed, they can't see anything. So that's what that's for. There's under the floor storage. This is all your stuff to change a tire iron. Well, where's the spare tire at? You would probably think that it was in here. It's down one more level. It just keeps going. So there's your spare tire, as well as scissor jack, as well as battery for engine, for the gas engine. Battery for the electric hybrid engine is located right underneath the rear seat. Putting the seats down, just hit this button here and they just release and you just move it down. If the seatbelt locks, it will not let you put it down. That's the issue that we were having. Same thing over here. Release the back and the seat folds down. Notice this. That almost looks like a vent for your HVAC system. That is lots of cargo space with all of the seats down. So coming up to the under the hood section, we've already popped it. You might have to give it a little bit of a push to get it to this point. And then there is a lever right inside here. You just pull up on it. Hood is super light. And you'll see there is two engines underneath the hood fighting for space. The hybrid drivetrain is right here. Electric engine. This is the gasoline engine. They're both roughly the same size, which I think is hilarious. If you are thinking about buying one of these, it is very imperative that you check out this region of the car, because for whatever reason, this side likes to rot out first on the Toyota Priuses. The other thing is the water likes to collect down inside here, and on most other cars this is like plastic, but it's metal on this car, so these all rot out. It's like that on both sides. It's like that on this side as well as the passenger side. You got to make sure that these are all in really nice shape and down in here, because water likes to collect. Like I said, for whatever reason it's worse on the driver's side. I went and looked at a bunch of Priuses. This is the one I ended up buying, but there was one where this was completely rotted. It was almost completely gone, and I was like, man, that really worries me. Like this whole part, water just kind of like collects up inside there. Let's talk about the key. So this is what the key looks like, and honestly this is one of the best features of this car. So you could literally just put this key right in your pocket, and that's where it can stay for the rest of the time if you want it to. If you're leaving and you want to lock your car, just hit this button. Car is locked. See, you can't get in it. It's locked. But if you walk right up to the car and it recognizes that you have the key in your pocket and you go and pull this, it's unlocked now. So that's a really cool feature. You don't even have to dig around for your keys. It has a proximity key for the ignition system, and this thing starting up is very interesting. So we're going to start it up real quick. All you do is push your foot on the brake and hit the power button, which is up here. It's on. Doesn't make hardly any noise at all. It shows you nice Toyota logo, and then it comes up. and you just put it in drive, and then it kicks the motor on. I'm pretty sure the electric motor starts the motor. To put it back in park after you're in drive, you just hit this park button. So what is the key if that feature stops working? This is the key, and it goes right inside there. It is the weirdest thing I've ever seen, and you don't turn it or anything. You just put your foot on the brake and hit the power button, and it turns right on. It's a little bit unsettling when you first drive this car because it doesn't kick over an engine like a traditional engine. It starts the electric motor, and then once you're moving past a certain speed, it kicks on the real engine. And this car kicks on and off the engine constantly. Right, driving the Prius. There is a couple things to talk about. So you could drive this car essentially 3 different ways. You could drive it regularly, like how I'm driving it now. That's just putting the drive select mode into drive. You could drive it with regenerative braking. I'm not sure if you can see the dashboard. The dashboard's all digital. When selecting a drive mode, your options are park, reverse, neutral, drive, and B. B is for the regenerative braking. When you turn that on, when you go into that drive mode, it's really heavy on the brakes. You could drive it without the regen. Third way of driving this car is driving a mixture of the two. And what that means is you put it in drive, then you could select the B or brake for when you're coming up to a row of cars or going down a hill. You can just simply put it in B and it will do all the braking for you. Most of the braking, I should say. Correction. It will do most of the braking for you. So here's the gear selector. I'm going down a hill, a real twisty hill real quick. To put it in B, you just simply tap down on that, and then the car is slowing down. You can't feel it slowing down because you're just sitting there in front of your computer watching this, but we are crawling down this hill right now. My foot isn't anywhere near the brake. I'll even move my foot out of the way, and we are making our descent down this hill. You can shift it over anytime you want to. So now I'm just in drive, and we're coasting and picking up speed. This car handles really, really well, all things considered. Because every automotive pundit that has done a review on this car says it's an absolute pile of crap. But it's really not. This is actually a really brilliant car. It handles and drives really well. It drives better than any of those pundits really give it credit for, really. I bought this car for a couple reasons. I was really skeptical about it. Like, there's no way that this car gets 550 miles to a tank of gas. But in my real world testing, I have found that to be true. It has an 11-gallon gas tank, and I have driven 500 miles on it. I've owned this car for 2 weeks. I waited 2 weeks to do this review because my brother's like, you better wait until after the honeymoon period. And so I wanted to make sure that it's everything that I thought it would be. And it is. This is a brilliant car. If you're broke and you don't have any money for gas to get back and forth to work, look for a Toyota Prius. It's not as bad. Frankly, it's not bad. It's not a bad car at all. You will get flack. People will look down upon you for driving a car like this. And I don't understand why. You know, like, why does this car get such a bad stigma whenever a Mercedes-Benz 450 SL is considered a great car when it's not? This is a great car, and it's looked upon as not a great car. You know, it's not perfect, but you could get 50 to 60 miles to the gallon out of it, and you could go between, I've got 500 miles out of the last tank of gas. It cost me $30 to drive 500 miles. I've owned this car for 2 weeks. I only put gas in it twice. I put gas in it 1 week at $30 and the other week at $17. So that's incredible. And you got to think of it this way too. If you get your oil change every 3,000 miles and you put, 500 miles to a tank of gas, 6 tanks of gas for every oil change. Think of that. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy to think of it that way. Another feature that I absolutely love is if you have the headlights on and you park the car, as soon as you open the door, they shut off. On to the pros and cons section. I'm getting all of these pros and cons from my experience in owning this car. On the positive side, this car handles way better than auto critics give it credit for. This car has an amazing turning radius. It is the tightest turning car that I've ever owned. It gets great gas mileage. The gas mileage is so good that it just doesn't seem legal or real. For the first 2 weeks that you own this car, you're like, I only put $30 in it. It should be running out of gas anytime now. And it just keeps going. $30 in Ohio. Gas is cheaper in Ohio, $1 cheaper per gallon than it is in Pennsylvania. We're not going to get into the reasons why, but $30 will give you 500 miles of range if you're a conservative driver, not a lead foot. You have to think about this another way. If this car's, the internet claims that it has a top speed of 112 miles per hour. I've gotten it up to 105 miles per hour. The computer, and it would still go. I just wanted to see what it would do flat out. Computer said I was getting 20 miles per gallon at that speed, and that is better than any Jeep Wrangler at 70 miles per hour. Heck, that's better than just about anything at that speed. But it's actually not a perfect car. On the con side, I hate the rear tailgate button situation. I wish it had an actual lever instead of a stupid button. When driving at night, there is a green bar that is on the windshield, and it's essentially a glare from the speedometer. It's got huge A-pillars, which could be hard to see at intersections, and the biggest downfall of this car is the interior materials that were used. The steering wheel feels like it's made out of eraser, like a pencil eraser. That's what it feels like. It just disintegrates in your hands every single time that you go to turn the wheel, and it's just not a quality feature. And the backup camera is absolutely atrocious at night. But those are the only cons that I could really come up with. I was really picking my brain to figure out what I didn't like about that car. Rest assured, the positives definitely outweigh the cons by a long shot. All right, on to Name That Tune. First person to give me the correct name of band as well as song title correctly will have their comment pinned to the top of the comment section. I chose not to do a 2009 song because I wasn't sure if anybody would know any songs from 2009. Anyway, thank you all so much for coming out and watching this. I really appreciate all of the support. And until next time, toodaloo! So I wanted to show you a couple things about driving this at night. The check engine light's on, as well as the tire pressure light. This thing has those tire pressure, tire valve sensors in them. If you get new tires and you don't reset the thing, the check engine light and the tire pressure light will stay on. So here's one thing that people don't normally show you, and it's a negative about this car. Now, I don't know if you can see it. The reflection of the speedometer light reflects up on to the windshield. It almost looks like a primitive heads-up display, but it's just a line, and that's all you see, and it's very annoying. Now check this out. You see the seatbelt light blinking? Now look at where they put the high beams. They put the high beams there. So watch. If you get it in unison, it's almost like the cops are coming after you for not wearing your seatbelt.